Hello, and thank you for joining us for this important and timely session, Building Inclusive Corporate Cultures. I'm excited to introduce our presenter, Andie Kaelin, Practice Director of People Transformation at Alithya. Andie brings a powerful combination of professional insight and personal experience to this conversation, and she has been a driving force in helping organizations embed equity and inclusion into their everyday operations, not just as a value, but as a business imperative. Andie will take us beyond surface level awareness and into the real, actionable steps required to build inclusive workplace cultures. This message was originally delivered live at the Ascend conference this past June. While this version is on demand, we encourage you to reflect, take notes, and bring the discussion back to your teams. We welcome your outreach if you'd like to continue the conversation. With that, let's dive in.
My name is Andie Kaelin, and I am the practice director of our people transformation practice at Alithya. It's a pleasure to present this topic to you today. Just a little bit about me. I've been with Alithya for the past 5 years, building our people transformation practice, but most of my experience comes in the human resources field. And I came to Alithya because I used to be a client of Alithya and certainly realized, having a background in human resources, how important the people are in the transformation work that we do in technology. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about building an inclusive culture to confront gender bias. My focus is getting people through change. I started my career in technology in the mid 90s and have worked in the healthcare industry for about 20 years. And I've been back, as I said before, in technology for the past 5 years. And while things have changed a bit, there's certainly still work to do. The difference between healthcare and technology is stark because the healthcare workforce is dominated by women. In the organizations that I worked for, it was about 85% female. According to Becker's Hospital Review, 55% of senior leadership positions in healthcare are held by women. Having women in leadership matters because it helps to set an equitable tone for the culture. My move back to tech was frankly a little jarring. Technology has advanced at an extraordinary pace in that time frame. When I started working in tech, I was a technical recruiter recruiting mainframe folks. And we are certainly in an age of AI now, so things have changed a lot. But from a gender standpoint, things haven't quite progressed as quickly, particularly around equity and inclusion. And I certainly noticed that in my shift. In the past 5 years, I've been left out, ignored, and even demeaned. And it shocked me because I just wasn't used to being treated like that. Again, when you're coming from a workforce that's primarily female, that's just the norm. And when you enter back into a more male dominated workforce, I kind of didn't have the skills to deal with some of the things that I was encountering. And my first reaction was, this is my fault. I did something wrong. I don't know enough. Like, this is about me. But it wasn't about me. It's really about some of the tones that are set in organizations. And I just want to add too that those interactions that I've had were certainly not with my Alithya colleagues. They are amazing, an amazing group of folks that are incredibly collaborative and supportive, but I work with clients on a regular basis, and those cultures are not always aligned with our values at Alithya. So today I want to talk a little bit more about how we could move beyond awareness and into action. So we all know that this happens, but what can we do about it? We want to build inclusive environments that foster diversity and growth for all genders. And perhaps more importantly, how we can recognize and dismantle gender bias when we see it, especially the kinds that are subtle, systematic, and persistent. In this slide, showing a little bit about the healthcare in the US versus tech, and you can see the stark difference between the female populations in each of these industries. The first strategy to use is to really understand the bias, name it, and then address it with intentionality. So we all know that what gets named gets measured, or what gets measured gets managed, however you want to say that. Yet gender bias in the workforce often remains unnamed because it can be difficult to spot, especially for those that aren't directly impacted. And the first step is to know your biases. Everybody has them. It's not something you need to, be ashamed of. You just have to know where yours are and understand and try to dismantle them yourself. So start with yourself. Biases can show up as in the following ways, like a woman being called aggressive for behaviors praised as assertive in a man, an idea being unheard until repeated by a different voice in the room, a woman returning from maternity leave passed over for a high visibility project because her leaders assume that she won't want the extra responsibility, a woman being interrupted more frequently or spoken over while male colleagues dominate decisions, and she may not even be invited to that discussion. As professionals, we have to develop the fluency to recognize these patterns, to call them out respectfully, and to coach others through them. One tactical step is to train leadership teams in bias recognition and interruption techniques. Another strategy is to cultivate a culture where advocacy is the norm. Culture is short for how we do things around here, and that we and the statement is you. I'm lucky to work with folks at Alithya that will stand up for others and have done so. But every person in the organization is a contributor to the culture, whether they're standing up or not standing up. Both can be equally loud in an environment. Inclusion doesn't work when it's outsourced to HR or to a women's group. It only works when it's everyone's job, especially those in positions of influence. This means encouraging sponsorship. Sponsors advocate for people when it counts in promotion meetings, high stake projects, and strategic conversations. So ask yourself, who am I sponsoring that doesn't look like me? Who's in the room when decisions are made and who is missing? We need to widen our lens because equity is not about lowering the bar, it's about clearing barriers that shouldn't have been there in the first place. The third strategy is to design inclusive systems, not just moments. One-off events and diversity statements are easy. Designing inclusive systems is harder, but it's where the real change happens. Look at your hiring funnels, your promotion timelines, meeting structures, even social events. Ask who thrives here and who survives. Inclusion isn't about making people fit into the existing system. It's about reshaping the system so that it works for everyone. Some things that you can do are using structured interviews and diverse panels to reduce similarity bias. You can rotate meeting facilitators to avoid the same voices dominating. Also, understanding who is recruiting and where they're recruiting and get involved to have influence. Also, examine where the fun gets done. One of those sort of primarily male-dominated activities is the golf course, and some of us golf, and that's great. But again, it's not everybody's sport. Consider things like hikes or cooking classes or volunteer events to widen your scope to include more folks that would be comfortable in that environment. Don't wait for someone to ask you. You can build these policies into your talent strategy proactively. Look at your own teams and adjust how you operate. Change can definitely happen from the ground up. The last strategy is to create safety for disagreement and model inclusive leadership. In high-performing business environments, we talk a lot about innovation. But true innovation requires psychological safety, the ability to challenge assumptions without fear of backlash. Inclusive leaders create space for disagreement. They admit when they're wrong, and they seek input from a variety of voices. This isn't soft leadership, this is strategic leadership. It drives better decisions, lower attrition, and stronger teams. Here's a practice that you can try out at work. In meetings, ask, whose perspective haven't we heard? And then pause, just give it some space and wait for the answer. These small moments will signal that inclusion is real and not just an empty idea. In conclusion, to everybody out there, you know how to drive results, you know how to build teams and navigate complexity. Now, the ask is to apply that same excellence to the culture you're creating, because inclusive cultures don't emerge by default, they are engineered with intention. Every person in an organization has a role in creating culture. So let's not settle for being aware of gender bias. Let's become architects of equity systematically, boldly, and unapologetically. Because when we get inclusion right, we don't just elevate women, we raise the standard for everyone. Don't ever give up advocating for equity and inclusion. Thank you so much for your attention today, and thank you to the women of Alithya that contributed to this presentation.